Welcome to this introduction to using primers in SnapGene. In SnapGene, primers appear as annotations on your sequences. In map view, primers in the forward orientation display above the line with reverse primers below. You can show or hide all primers via the side toolbar. Switch to sequence view to see the binding site and any mismatches. Hover over any primer to see more information. To edit, double-click on the primer annotation. In the primers view, you can view all the primers associated with a particular sequence. Expand a row to see more information about an individual primer, or use the controls to show, hide, or edit the primers. If you want to export some primers as text for ordering or documentation, simply select them in the table and choose Export via the Primers menu. SnapGene provides several tools for working with primers, such as designing new primers, adding existing primers to your sequences, and automated primer design for PCR-mediated cloning methods. Use the Add Primer command to add a published primer to your sequence. Type or paste the primer sequence into the primer field. If a match is detected, SnapGene will display it on the bottom panel. Give the primer a name and description and click Add Primer to Template. The primer will then appear on your sequence at the binding position. SnapGene dynamically calculates primer binding and melting temperature. If required, you can adjust the match criteria via the hybridization settings. The Import Matching Primers from SnapGene file option lets you quickly copy matching primers from existing files onto your new sequence. We recommend keeping a delimited spreadsheet of your primer collection. You can then use Import Primers from a list to detect and annotate all matching primers from your sheet onto your sequences. To manually create a new primer, open a target DNA sequence and select the chosen binding region. SnapGene reports the predicted melting temperature for the selection region, allowing you to easily define a primer of the appropriate length. Click Add Primer to add a primer based on the selection. You can click within the sequence to edit or use the tools to add extensions to the primer if required. Check out our video on designing primers for PCR for more information. Once you have a new primer onto your sequence, double-click it to edit as needed. Many SnapGene cloning simulation tools will automatically create appropriate primers for you. For example, when using the Gibson assembly tool, once you have your vector and insert fragments ready for assembly, SnapGene will automatically design PCR primers with appropriate melting temperatures for PCR amplification, and also identify appropriate overlap regions for the homology-mediated assembly. To learn more, see our separate cloning videos. Sometimes you may want to use your existing primers. For example, in a PCR simulation, use the drop-down menus to select existing primers in your simulations. And that's a quick overview of working with primers in SnapGene. For more information about SnapGene, check out the other video tutorials on the SnapGene website. To learn more, visit snapgene.com.